What you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself. And what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself, and what you know of yourself depends on what you've been told of yourself. Yes, sir, you listen to 360 Info. I'm your host, Hamptonio. And we got a great day going on in Cleveland, and we got a great show for you. You know, one of our regulars and a brother that I really consider a scholar and a friend, you know, and, you know, he's going to empower us with some good information as well. You know, as usual, 360 Info, we like to bring you some good scholarship, some good information that you don't usually get, you know, on TV and on mainstream. So in the studio, well, at home studio, we got Vince. So what's going on, Vince?
Oh, just another beautiful day in Cleveland. You know, I was thinking about it earlier today. We are really blessed. We've had a beautiful month. We've had rain, we've had sunshine, we've had hot weather. So it's been a beautiful month despite everything that's going on. Secondly, I would just like to encourage folks who are listening that have businesses or organizations that they would like to support through radio to consider advertising on WERE with 360 Info Network. You can reach out to our brother Stephen E. Boyd by calling 216-526-1297. That's 216-526-1297. Reach out to Steve. We have a great listenership for this radio program, and right now is a good time for businesses to take advantage of the opportunity to get the word out that they're still open, that they're still doing business. We can provide a service to you on that regard. So don't forget, give us a call at 216-526-1297. Talk to Stephen E. Boyd. As Hamptonio said, we do have a great show lined up for you. We have a brand new book that has been birthed by our guest, T. Owens Moore, and you can get that book by going to drtmoore.com, drtmoore.com. And you can get this great book. We're going to let him tell you or tell us about it, tell you about it. Just to give you a little background, T. Owens Moore, PhD, is trained as a physiological psychologist. He's a graduate of Lincoln University, and he has an MS and a PhD from Howard University. For more than 20 years, he served as a college professor, a biomedical researcher, and an African-centered scholar activist. He's a distinguished educator who appreciates interdisciplinary studies. He served as an assistant professor at Morehouse College in Atlanta and as an associate professor and chairperson of the Department of Psychology at Clark Atlanta University and professor and chair of the Department of Psychology at Fayetteville State University in North Carolina. His specialty courses are both in the field of neuroscience and African-centered psychology. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to welcome to 360 Info Network, Dr. T. Owens Moore.
Greetings, Brother Vince, for the Hamptonio. Thank you.
Hey, Doc, how you doing there, sir? Yeah, well, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I say you are looking at this list growing of documents and books and articles that you write here, and we just continue to add on as we go. And I know you sent me that message about go ahead and write that book I've been playing around with writing. You know. Absolutely. You know, go ahead, Doc.
I'm not waiting for anybody. You got to make a move, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You know what? I'm very intrigued about, you know, what you do, because I think it's very important that, you know, we really, as African-American people, and people in general, really don't understand the physiology, you know, and what makes them tick. We tend to get into several different disciplines to try to find that inner self, you know, through yoga, through meditation, and, you know, and what surprised me, you know, a lot about us as far as, you know, our biological makeup, or we really don't know about ourselves, you know. We let other people tell us about it, you know, because, you know, you could talk to an adult and ask them, where's your liver at? Where's your adrenal glands at? You know, you could give them simple tests like that, and a lot of folks can't tell you what the different placements of those particular organs, let alone their functions. But you have tackled an area that is really for a lot of people in dealing with melanin and purpose melanin, and dealing and how it plays with even with the pineal gland and things like that. So I'm very intrigued by your work. I think it's a necessary work that our people need to know about themselves and understanding themselves, and that's what ancestors have tapped into to really take them to the level of where they at or where they were back in the day, because they understood that thing and had it proposal. So he's on the new book here, Pigment Power, my brother.
Well, you brothers have been on point about the health issues in our community for years, and as master engineers, I appreciate you all for being in this position to even getting it out to people. Your listenership is evidently interested in this topic of health and nutrition. The reality is we're living in a system like a machine. They need robots, and this machine just go along with the program. The robots don't understand, like you just said, the body, don't understand the elements that make it work. And so when you ask, why am I writing this book, or I wrote the other books, because we don't really know too much about ourselves in terms of our history and our bodies. So I talked about the science and our teachers to go a little bit further about how we can be manipulated, controlled via drugs and external items. So now Pigment Power is to provide further emphasis on the reality that everything else is about energy. I mean, you can look at the outside and see plants, and you can see, especially in the summertime, it's hot, and everything is green and green. Why is it green? Because that's chlorophyll. What is chlorophyll? It's a pigment. You can't operate without pigments. So if you just have to look outside and just understand how nature works, photosynthesis, that's all about converting energy. So look at our bodies. Our bodies should be constructed in the same way to what? Convert energy. So having pigments internally, externally, on and in your body creates a certain energy level that keeps you in a state of health. And so when you start thinking about eating nutrition, people start eating, I guess, foods that are tan and brown on your plate. That ain't life, that's death. You start eating things that are colorful, things that have some life to it, things that come from the ground, things that come from the earth are going to make your body look a lot longer rather than things that are dead and things that are processed. So that's why I write this book. The subtitle is Topics on Melanin, Science, and Health. Now, I go deeper into this one. I mean, I'm really excited about getting it out. You asked me when am I getting it out? But guess what? I hope it comes on out, because it's at the printer right now. So as it's at the printer, we talk about promoting it. So the dynamic of where we're at in this world, the social politics. I mean, I go to that, the social implications of blackness. I mean, it's all this fear about and people in communities scared of a person of color or pigment. What's going on with that? Is it a psychological issue? I kind of go on the front end, and I still go deep into the issue of melanin. Where is that in the body? As you just said, we don't talk about it. We don't know where it is. Some new research is coming out. With the science of this virus. I deal with that really in the last chapter. That's why it's kind of delayed. It should have been out in January. But then we had this pandemic. We had this situation going on. I had to add another chapter. The actual presentation of bringing this out, and I go deep into the issue of rhythm. I talk about the issue of the penis and penis power and pigmentation. I talk about the whole issue of stress and how there's research on, I don't know if you've ever heard of microaggressions, like little things happen over time and makes people stressed out. Or on a physiological level, there's things in your genes, just because of telomeres on the end of your chromosomes that can deteriorate, become smaller. They don't work right. Those are more deteriorated than people who have a lot of microaggressions, like black males. Studies of that. When we start talking about the physiology, man, when we don't know our bodies, we don't know how the external world impacts our bodies. We're in a position of being controlled. So that's a little Pigment Power.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I always thought about from youth having like summer camps where we talk about the different organs, because right now I believe the organs in our body is almost out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You don't,
right.
you don't think about them. So I was thinking that some classes need to be done on talking about the different organs of the body and how and what it needs to run optimally. And then maybe we'll be conscientious about what we put in our system, because now like, oh man, I'm just messing with my pancreas. At least you're thinking, you may push back a little bit, because you're familiar with the organ, you understand what it takes, you understand what's defeat the purpose of its running optimally. You think about what you're putting in your mouth, because you know that it's upsetting the balance of your system and in the long run. So we can never get our children and understand that they may feel like they, Superman right now down, but that stuff catch up with them as time goes on,
Man, you're missing the big word. You said thinking.
Yes.
Man, thinking is becoming illegal.
Okay.
You know what I mean? All the
break.
Stuff is
Okay, it's 11:15 right here on AM 1490 WERE. You're listening to 360 Info Network with Hamptonio and Vince Robinson. Our guest is Dr. T. Owens Moore, who has a brand new book. It's called Pigment Power, Topics on Melanin in Science and Health. If you're interested in the book, and after this show you should be interested in the book, you can go to drtmoore.com. That's drtmoore.com, and you can get your copy of Pigment Power. We'll be back with more 360 Info Network right after this. We're back on AM 1490 WERE with 360 Info Network. I'm Vince Robinson along with Hamptonio, and we are talking to Dr. T. Owens Moore. He is the author of Pigment Power, and we're going to talk more about this book as we continue with our conversation. Dr. Moore, I noticed that you have several chapters in the book, and one that really caught my attention, specifically because of what we're going through right now, is chapter 4, Sun Conscious. What is Sun Conscious all about?
Well, I think that really goes to what Brother Hampton talked about, not our body and not understanding what's inside of our body. You think about the environment outside, you can't exist without the sun. The sun is important for this plant. It's important for the trees and the leaves, for that chlorophyll, and the photosynthesis was the same thing in our body. Inside of our body needs the outside world, that is the sun, to make our bodies healthy. So when we say sun conscious, being conscious of how important it is to have what the sun provides. This whole storyline about vitamin D has been a challenge for years, and we know that vitamin D is really not a vitamin, it's really a steroid hormone. So from the sun provides health and nutrition via, again, the skin to enhance what the body needs to stay healthy. It's not even just for coloration, to make skin dark. No, we're talking about building the immune system. We start talking about behavioral implications. We start talking about psychomotor skill development. So all the things that are then outside of the body via the sun and stimulate the body to rise to a higher level of consciousness. So vitamin D becomes critical because we're now, as African people or Native people, living here in a land that is maybe not as sun rich. The body may not produce as much vitamin D in this environment. Therefore, there may be a host of health issues that people can succumb to because the vitamin D no longer is there, helping as an immunostimulant. So when we talk about sun conscious, it's really to emphasize the importance of being in the sun, not running from the sun.
Okay. We're coming up on the fall season, and what happens in the fall is that the days get shorter, and as a result, we get less exposure to sunlight. And I think there is a growing body of people who are becoming aware of the fact that the diminishing sunlight means that we get less vitamin D3 and our immune systems suffer as a result of that. Can you talk about the possibility of a second wave of virus infections as a result of the depressed immune system as a result of diminishing sunlight?
Well, I'm speculation at this point. And why do I say that? Because when this pandemic hit November and then February and escalated, people saying, oh, well, when it's going to get hot in the summer months, it's going to go away. Well, guess what? It did go away. So this is functioning like a regular virus. So during the winter months, or as the sun starts to go away and people do start getting foods on October, November areas in December, I can't really say if it's going to be a double whammy. But the reality is, on the front end, we have to encourage people to do things that boost their immune systems. Again, people aren't, if you're not eating pigmented foods, if you're not eating boosting foods, again, you're going to succumb. We can't get caught into the sheet and always wait for a vaccine. That's going to solve the problem. That's not the problem, because this darn virus is mutating. So we have to look at, again, on the front end, how do we now look at boosting our immune system? That's why when your grandmama and your old folks used to give you something called high-level oil during the winter months, they would give it to you because that contains the vitamin you're missing, because that is changing. So we have to be on that same level of understanding that we have to boost our body, not succumb to these viruses that are going to all be around.
I know in chapter 10, you talked a little bit about inhibitors and how it relates to, maybe exacerbating, I believe, the COVID, and also talked a little bit about 5G. I haven't been hearing a whole lot lately about the 5G, but it's still a factor.
Well, the chapter 12 is where I emphasize the virus, the ACE inhibitor. So to break this down, I wrote chapter 12 called Pigment Power Defense System, because when you think about what's happening in our body, melanin actually is a natural, antioxidant. So it's helping to neutralize bad things that should not be in the body. So on the front end, it's protective. So when you think about this this coronavirus, it's actually latching on to these proteins in our body called ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme receptors. So it sounds like a complex name. We'll just say ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme receptors, but they're all over the body. So that's why this virus is impacting people's respiration, blood pressure, cardiovascular issues. Now it's talking about neurological issues, also smell, olfactory, and it's everywhere. And so then we're going to break this down, because the issue of this protein is getting into the body. And if we're not investing our time on looking at that mechanism, we ain't trying to solve nothing. You don't even hear nothing about ACE proteins in the literature. Here we go, vaccine. For the vaccine. So when you're talking about the new research, coming, it's emphasizing interferon research. Interferon. You know who's at the front or for leading that kind of research? Cuba. You ain't hear nothing in the data in the research about Cuba, because there's so-called sanctions against that, argues against that country. But they have medical scientists and doctors going all over the world helping other people, sometimes for free. So interferon research, looking at ways to boost the immune system. Most people have looked at inflammation. How do you use steroids maybe to stop the inflammation that's going on with this virus? Well, that's been controversial from the beginning, but people are now coming around that steroids could be protective to help stop the inflammation causing the problems with the respiratory system, blowing up and the person can't breathe, to the blood pressure problems. So this ACE inhibitor becomes important, because people who are on blood pressure medicine, some people are on ACE2 inhibitors. Wow. Like 100 different blood medicines out there. But ACE2 inhibitors can be problematic, because if this virus is getting to your body by that, and now you're taking medicine that makes you weaker for it to get into the body, guess what? People got blood pressure issues. That's why we're having in Italy and Spain. We got black people here in the United States. Blood pressure problems, it makes you much more susceptible to catching this virus. It's the science behind it, not study. We're just waiting on what? Vaccine.
Because I find it very peculiar, but it pointed out a few times that, the powers that be never talk about eating right, never talk about doing whatever if for suggesting anything, they can just make a general statement by just saying, build your immune system, try to eat right, but you never hear anything coming out of, Pennsylvania Avenue, nothing.
So you could be get in trouble for say eating cherries and walnuts, but you won't get in trouble by saying taking a prescribed medicine from Walgreens, huh?
Right, absolutely.
Dr. Owens, you talked about ACE inhibitors, and there has been some conversation about the drug hydroxychloroquine. Can you, from a professional standpoint, talk about whether or not hydroxychloroquine is effective combined with Zithromax and zinc as a way to combat COVID-19?
In that media, and so these stories that are saying, "Oh, it works." Some people say it don't work, and it's killing people. And the reality is, it was created for malaria. So you got people who may be using certain medicines, because they won't make money off of the profit of what the drug's being used. So I certainly wouldn't be pushing a medicine like that. That is not really even used. People that have rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, those medicines are set aside for those people that need it. Experiment on, hey, let's take it because we think that it can help out with this virus here. So I'm not a proponent of that. And the controversy heard in the media, in the literature. You heard about the Nigerian professor or doctor who was caught up saying a whole bunch of stuff, and the president in here in the United States, the president in Brazil pushing that. I'm not a proponent of that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is the psychological implications of the mask. They're saying that it can slow the spread and so forth and so on. But I just wonder, from a psychological point, what impact is it having on our psychological health when we, adapt to this new normal of walking around with masks on all the time?
Yeah, I guess that's the challenge about thinking, because as you said earlier, we were talking about the body and not their body in terms of where their heart what side of the heart may be on, left or right. You have two hearts, pancreas. You got one or two pancreas. So people don't know the bodies. So we're being taught to just be robots. So if you think about the mask component in psychological, look how deep it is, where you have a lot of people that are using Zoom or some type of media where you have to be online to talk to somebody else. Some people are saying you have to have your mask on while you're on the Zoom call. You got to have your mask on while you're on the Zoom call.
Right.
People that. So psychologically, we got messed up. So in the past, that whole mask was associated with, black people being not, being cut off, not being able to eat, and, not being able to say things. And so you look at it historically with the whole slavery process is about control. Now, though, it really is an important factor, because even just yesterday, if you look at the Baltimore Sun news, it's a story about this coronavirus, getting into the nose area. And this is pretty heavy, because in the nose area, you have a lot of ACE proteins, and receptors are there. Now, check this out. Ready for this? Because I know the mask issue is a question, but I'm saying it's important, because if you do sneeze or you sniff, cough, hack, guess what? Those are repelling those elements that is creating a problem. But look at this. Remember in Wakanda, when the brother had his serial number on a body part? Where did his body part was? What was his lip? Serial number was? Yeah, under the lip. The lip look. And some people got thumbs, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, darkness. That's melanin. Inside your internal organ, you got melanin all up in your nose, too. Your nasal region. So this ACE protein is in whole body parts. You start thinking about where people are sniffing, taking things in. You just think about the mouth, the areas where these proteins are, and then dark elements like melanin in those body parts, those regions. Because the reason why, again, is latching on, and it's killing some people more than other people. So the mask is important. I'm not saying it's dark, but it's just the psychology of it. How are you going to be on a Zoom call and you are on the state and you got to have a mask on? That don't even make any sense.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too, though. But you know, I know we're going down this COVID lane again. You know, I know it's important to a lot of listeners too about the whole COVID piece. But I wanted to again digress a little bit back to the book, and when you're talking about the pigment power, you know, topics of melanin and science. Now, this melanin thing, you know, I know you spoke a little bit about this melanin. How, you know, so with African Americans, you know, being I guess the only Homo sapien on the planet that has such melanin as they do, you know, how can we use that? I guess maybe just through knowledge to our advantage, because you're calling this pigment power. You know, what power playing dormant here that we need to extrapolate to our best interest? You know, when you said related to health and melanin and pineal gland, what, you know, we need to delve off into this a little bit, because we getting our hands cooked right now as far as the health care and everything else. So what we missing out of?
Dr. Moore, hold that thought. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back with a profound answer to a profound question. We'll be right back on 360 Info Network right after this. We're back on 360 Info Network with Hamptonio and Vince Robinson. Our guest is Dr. Timothy Owens Moore, author of the book Pigment Power. And we're going to talk about a profound answer to a profound question that came right before we took this break. Dr. Moore?
Yes, indeed. The emphasis really is on energy. Energy vibrations are everything that defines human reality. And when you have external information or external sources altering your internal mechanisms, like media telling you what to think, you see why we then don't look blackness and pigment and color as something positive. We at things that are white and bright and light as something good. That's why people say get enlightened. But nah, in Pigment Power, we're talking about getting in darker. So the energy piece is where the key is. So by us consuming the right foods, having the right thought, we can change the whole dynamic of how the world even operates. So if we don't look at it that way, we become cogs in the wheel, part of the matrix, always looking at black is bad, and now you got people, light skin, doing everything they can to be other than melanin dominant. And so this planet going through a change right now. I don't know if y'all see what's happening in California, but that is devastating. I don't know if you see what's going on in Death Valley. It's 133 plus degrees. I don't understand that. If you don't have melanin, guess what? You're going to be wiped off the planet. So the energy level, you saw the importance of having darkness, which absorbs energy and takes in. That's where we need to be thinking as we start teach it that way. Rather than people, dark and black is bad. No, the darkest, the pigment creates the power to cause the energy, cause things to happen and change.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Absolutely.
Astrobiology. Did you just allude to that? You have a chapter, your chapter called Astrobiology and Melanin.
Yeah, that's pretty much a little gem inside why this book is kind of provocative. Because I got a book in there that deals with the reality of, are we from elsewhere? Are we interstellar? Because when you look at melanin is in the entire universe. Melanin itself as a chemical is a complex biopolymer. It has multiple chemical structures within it. It's almost like indestructible. You can see it on meteorites. You can see see this in the cosmos, something called dark matter, which is still trying to figure out what is that. There's also something called dark energy out in the universe. It's like it's expanding, it contracts, it can extend. So it's like something out there in the universe from the Big Bang originally that's still keeping the universe together. Well, melanin is the same thing in the body. So this issue of astrobiology, I'm now emphasizing that reality that, guess what, might have come from somewhere else. And the melanin become a conduit or that particular element that's connected to the universe that makes us animal-like. but more human-like.
Mm-hmm. Those who is in the spiritual vein of thing, I tend to always remind them, before there was light, there was what? Darkness. And that seems to be the protocol, the way the Creator created the universe of everything coming out of darkness, and one of the universal principles that we are coming to some knowledge of energy and everything is energy, and we're electrical beings, is melanin, black absorb energy, white reflects energy, and that's, I think, is the key to a lot of these mysteries they tend to have about black people being so in tune and so in rhythm with everything. It's because of the melanin. It's picking up. What did Dr.Moore say? The plants talk to them and things like that. So I think that's all about being grounded and being connected. And I think melanin is the contributor to that process.
There's some people that are more in tune to nature than others. And that's the fact. And so those that are able to, such as you just mentioned, George Washington Carver, man, he changed the whole industry in the United States from his relationship to plants.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some people that are more connected than others and don't. They then can't really feel what you're saying. That's what I'm saying. Everything is really on our energy level. You could have one word that could change the scope of how you deal with a person. The sports, you could have one event from I don't know if it's basketball, football, tennis, whatever, that could change the whole energy level of the game. And guess what? It switched.
Dr. Moore, we are having significant conversations about race on a global basis, and I think you just kind of touched on it, but I would like for you to talk about the differences that we have genetically, because there are some folks who have less pigment, at least on the skin surface, than others. Could you talk about the differences that account for that?
Well, in terms of pigmentation on our body, it relates to enzymes that are helping to convert the chemicals to make melanin. So that means a person who has limited enzymes such as tyrosinase, for example. Tyrosinase is an enzyme that converts tyrosine into the other elements that make pigmentation. So genetically,
Caller's fading out.
Yes, we're having some technical difficulties. The sound is really choppy. So bear with us. It seems as though we've lost Dr. Moore in terms of the signal. We hope that he'll come back. And I would like to just put this out here. I'm willing to do a Zoom television show on the internet with Dr. Moore so that we can get a better sound, because the information that he's giving to us is really quite critical. We need to hear this. So we're going to have another opportunity with his consent to do a Zoom call live on Facebook. We'll put him up on the screen. You'll be able to see him. You'll be able to go into the chat room and ask questions if he gives us his consent on that. The question that I'm asking about the differences is just to resolve any misunderstanding about, basically, I'll just put it plainly, the difference between white folk and black folk. There's been conversation about race being an artificial construct. And I saw a meme that was posted, I think, by our brother John Brent, that just talked about how many people you go back to. When you look at your parents, you have 2 people, and then their parents is 4 people, and then their parents' parents were 8 people, and it keeps going and going and going until you have over 1,000 people who were responsible for you. So there's a lot of genetics involved in that. But some folks, they have lighter skin. Some folks are kind of pink, kind of, sort of. And some of us walk around with extremely dark skin. So there are some differences, and I'm just curious about what those differences are.
Are you back with us, Dr. Moore?
I can hear you guys clearly. You can hear me?
Yeah, we'll hear you
we
now.
Got you.
Yeah. The whole controversial work going on now in evolution is the reality of the Neanderthal and Denisovans, the fossil lines that they say had interbred. That means they were doing around the same time that Homo sapiens was coming along, and it felt like the Neanderthals were wiped out. People are saying that those fossil lines, they were interbreeding, and that's why then you get different types of individuals when you speak genetics over the years. So the Neanderthal gene, they say, is nowhere in African population on the continent of Africa. But the Neanderthal gene has existed and thrived in Middle Eastern and European and Asian people. So genetically speaking, from the very beginning, yes, evolution is, well, not is focusing on evolution. The mixing of these fossil lines has caused people's bodies to time. But the original prototype comes from a dark-skinned African person living on the continent. They may not have been on the continent. May have been some fossil lines that are showing that that's where the earliest lines of Homo sapien have been found on the continent of Africa. Darkness makes all the other people. You can't make black people from white people, other people.
Now, you know, you're scientists, and you know, we've been having folks from Germany and everybody else, talk about and understand and research those particular things. Now, I'm getting a little bit into the politics of it. You know, how come this information is not out? You know, is it, like I said, is it purposeful and things of that nature? You know, so that's probably gonna be my last question. I'll have to let you guys go. We got a protest again downtown, but again, that's the what's the politics behind this? You know, why can't we just come out and say what it is? You know, is it purposeful?
Well, two quick statements on that. Got to go. One is two hypotheses. One called the Outer Africa hypothesis. One called the multi-regional hypothesis. Outer Africa hypothesis relates to mitochondrial DNA study, meaning that a woman and her DNA, when you go back in time, it relates to all humans came from that African woman there in Africa. The multi-regional relates to, again, well, that may have happened. Europeans created over here, Asians were over here, other lands were created other places, so multi-regional. So that was more political. Why? Because they come from Africa, we came from over here. So that's how the storyline becomes complicated in the anthropological world, because the issue is, do you or didn't you come from African people? So most of the studies are relating, no, we didn't come from Africans, we came from over here. So that's why it becomes political.
Okay. All right. It's 11:45 right here on AM 1490. You're listening to 360 Info Network with Hamptonio and Vince Robinson. Our guest is Dr. T. Owens Moore. He is the author of Topics on Melanin in Science and Health. And that book is available to you by going to drtmoore.com. Go to drtmoore.com, and you can get access to this great publication. We'll be back with more 360 Info Network right after this message. We're back on 360 Info Network with Dr. T. Owens Moore. He is the author of Pigment Power, Topics on Melanin in Science and Health. And I have just been informed that the book is in production. I think he did mention that at the top of the hour, because there was an additional chapter that he had to add to it. So I'm assuming that you can pre-order the book now, Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
And tell folks the best way to get your book.
As you say on www.drtmoore.com, is drtmoore.com. The product, go ahead and pre-order your book, or I can wait till it comes on your list.
Okay.
People know.
All right. And there's a reason that I would urge folks to go directly to Dr. Moore's website. There are book publishers like Amazon, and they like to take a nice cut of the profits from the book. So if you go to Dr. Moore's website, then he benefits to a much greater extent from your purchase of the book. And of course, you benefit because you have access to the book and the great knowledge that is contained with it. So I'm just going down the list of chapters, and you've already talked about a few of them, but we can touch on some of the others that we may not have spoken of, and we can talk about some that you have talked about and just maybe talk a little bit further about them. Chapter 6 has a very interesting title. It's Rhythm Nation. What can we learn in Rhythm Nation?
Well, we are emphasizing the reality of music and rhythm and everything we do. As African, Black, melanin dominant community, rhythm becomes important. Can't have a party without music. You think about the types of music that were labeled on us, like rhythm and blues. We didn't label that. Jazz, we didn't label it that way. But someone described it externally, talking about how it is that we create this kind of music that has this kind of flavor to it. So beyond the whole issue of just music in the industry, just the way we play sports, the way we, again, interact with our rhythm, life. So I emphasize that whole aspect of rhythm from multiple angles, emphasizing like very important principles of the Kabbalah, or it talks about rhythm as a principle of life. But we as a melanin dominant people, without rhythm, there is no life. So we emphasize that in the nation.
Okay. Chapter 7, I think, is one that the brothers will be interested in. It's penis power and pigmentation.
Yeah, so it's a little social and scientific. Social on the level of why is it that people are lynching people? And they got them on the trees. Why are they trying to cut the penis off? That's a screw them. What's going on with that? So you think about the issue of a gun. What is a gun? They propel something out to kill something else. Well, what is the penis? Shaped like a gun. If you can have a physical gun, like something in your hand and shoot somebody, your gun is really your penis. You can wipe people out with your penis. Why? Because you genetically take people out, because there will be no other people looking like you if you start mixing and mingling. So this whole issue of xenophobia, it goes really, really, really deep in terms of the issue of genetics.
Wow.
People feel like they're going to be wiped out. That's why they got this fear. The fear, and then you create all this division in our society. On the level of science of it, why is the penis dark in the first place? And it's not even receiving any sign. So we go into those scientific elements and talking about the issue of libido and certain chemical items that can help with keeping the blood flow proper in the penis area. And if people don't think about it, you like beets? BEETS?
Yes.
Beets? Yeah, beets are very important. That's a natural element that can create blood flow in the area. So we just I'll look at those in that chapter, but it really is talking about the social and scientific aspects of pigmentation in the penis.
Okay. You talked about the gun, and I ran across something on Facebook the other day that indicated that them pointing that thermometer at your forehead can have a detrimental impact on your pineal gland. Can you validate that?
No, I can't, and I understand the importance of that because you're putting infrared light on the forehead going straight towards that area. How is that infrared light? I don't know. I've done my own studies with electromagnetic frequency detector looking at radiation, electrical and magnetic, that is in the house, in the environment. All the stuff that's going on now, and as it activated, that's more energy being generated. So I have looked at it on the level of external things affecting the body, but I don't know about that infrared gun or temperature monitor that's being put in the forehead. I don't know if it really penetrates enough to fix the problem, so I can't validate that.
Okay. Well, the suggestion was made that rather than pointing the gun at your head, they should point it at your wrist or the bend of your elbow, because they could get a better reading from that versus your forehead anyway. So I don't know. It's really kind of spooky, but then there's also the psychological implication of having a gun pointed in your face and you being desensitized to it. Could you talk about the psychological implication of that?
Well, brother, I think as we've gone back to December and people saying that this pandemic was talked about, or even years before the date, all these things are probably arranged to get past the thin fearful state. That book called 1984 by George Orwell, and that was written in 1943. Big Brother and all these things that are so full force later on in the program. So when you keep asking those psychological questions, I think those who are in control and can stay in power if they control the people where they're in. The issue of energy. When you got people thinking of energy, you're controlling the way that they're operating and walking through society. It's like there's no need to have any fear of the people anymore if you control their thinking. That's why it was easy to take those shackles off the slaves, run around plantations because they had their mind. So psychologically right now, all these things that are happening as a result of our society being socially distanced. I mean, that's not us as African people. We, as melanated people, need to have contact. So now you've changed that whole dynamic. That's why when now people are coming back out, people are killing one another. You got all these violent episodes happening because people are not thinking normally anymore.
Yes.
So we're being manipulated, which is dangerous.
Right. When you talk about that manipulation, I mean, just the thought that a grandmother can't hug her grandbabies. I wrote a poem a few months ago, and what I kind of perceived in my own consciousness was that we're already at World War III, and the weapons that exist in this war are each other. Because now we're bumping elbows, we're, giving the stiff arm, you keep your distance, you might kill me, I might kill you. You've seen a massive transformation in the relationships that we have spatially.
And someone profits off of that. The industrial complex profits off of that. Mm-hmm. Manufacturers profit off of that.
Yes. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The United States does not work without war.
Okay. One also wanted to talk to you about something that you brought up earlier, and that is radiation, millimeter wave radiation specifically, that will be much more prominent as 5G rolls out. I know that you are one that will not put your ear to the phone, and you're probably someone who would rather turn the modem off at night than sleep with it running all night. There are a lot of folks who are saying that, it's just a conspiracy theory. The radiation is safe. It's not going to harm anyone. What could you say to those who doubt the fact or the possibility that millimeter wave radiation might be detrimental to humans?
Well, I just say everybody who's gone to a dentist before, you sat in the dentist chair, you're getting ready to take an x-ray, they're going to put a lead blanket on you, and they leave the room.
Okay.
I mean, I don't need to say any more beyond that. You can't see the x-ray.
Right.
You can't see the x-ray. Why are they covering up your organs? With a lead blanket? Because that energy out there is debilitating. So when you can't see it, you don't know what's happening. So with this 5G or anything that's being created to cause more waves, frequencies out there, yes, it's going to affect the body. Frequencies affect the way plants grow. So of course they're going to affect the way your body adapts and responds to it. So all I'm saying is that just the fact that you go to the dentist and they leave the room when they give an x-ray, darn well there's other types of energy, these electromagnetic waves are having impacts on the body. We just don't pay attention to it.
Okay. And real quickly, is there anything that we can do to protect ourselves from the radiation?
Well, it's because it depends upon what radiation you're talking about. But think about 5G, eliminate your use of some of the technology. I mean, you asked me to be on a Zoom call in a few weeks whenever we get together, but the Zoom also creates electromagnetic frequencies and radiation. You can put a meter right by your computer when the Zoom is on. I personally feel like a little pulsation going on when I got the Zoom on. My computer messes up after the Zoom call. I mean, so that's radiation that we're now all exposed to in this social distancing, which is probably why people didn't leave the house wanting to kill somebody.
Okay. All right. Well, those are very valid suggestions. And as you speak, I'm thinking in terms of, closing up maybe one or two of these laptops that seem to be running all the time. We have to do things to protect ourselves. And arming yourself with knowledge is one of the best ways to do that. The book is called Pigment Power, Topics on Melanin in Science and Health. It's available for pre-order at drtmoore.com. That's drtmoore.com. Dr. Moore, we'd like to thank you so much for being our guest on 360 Info Network. And as I said, we can do a Zoom call. I will keep it short so that you won't be exposed for too long. But I would like for folks to get the benefit of what you shared with us today. And we had some technical issues with relation to your voice coming over the airwaves. So we want to clean that up and serve our listeners properly. With that, we'd like to thank you again for appearing on 360 Info Network. Dr. Moore is one of our so-called resident scholars. I say that even though he doesn't live in Cleveland, but he's on the airwaves very frequently with us. And we really appreciate your contributions to 360 Info Network.
I'm honored, and thank you for the invitation.
All right. Dr. T. Owens Moore. Also would like to remind you, if you're interested in advertising on 360 Information Radio, you can reach out to Stephen E. Boyd at 216-526-1297. That's 216-526-1297. Consider being an advertiser on 360 Info. We reach a very large audience, and our listener base is growing, and you should do everything that you can to take advantage of that. I'd like to thank you for tuning in right here on AM 1490, watching us on Facebook, and also tuning in at newstalkcleveland.com. I'd like to thank our engineer, Tristan Sanchez, for doing what he can to make us feel good and sound good on 360 Info Network. And most of all, thank you for listening. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make it a great day, Cleveland. Peace.